Hello, hello, hello. Hey, I know I'm a few seconds early, but we're starting on time. I like to start on time. I like to end on time. So normally these videos will go about 30 minutes. I like to give you just some real meat and potatoes about your back office. And I'm Tanya Jackson. I am the creator of nonprofits Get Connected. And I've got over 15 years in fundraising, back office, finance, working with donor solicitation, donor cultivation, working with grants, grant management. So I've done a lot of the back end. And why is the back end important? It's important because it makes your front end run much smoother. And without your back end processes, you won't have, your front end won't be running properly. And so, as I stated last week when I was talking about choosing your donor management software, we were talking about, the importance of, getting your information, getting your database, getting your information from your donors. And so this week, we're going to be talking about top requested features when choosing a donor management software. Now, these things may not seem important to you right now if you're a new nonprofit or you're just starting out or you're just starting to get donations. But if you started out early and start putting these things in place early, you'll be so much better off when you grow big. So, it's like it's hard to put processes in place when you've got a multitude of information that you're trying to manage, a multitude of donors, donor information, donor data, processes, working with finance, trying to reconcile your donations or information that you've collected. So now let me just say this. I'm working with some new equipment today, so I'm trying to get my videos to be really, really professional. So I've got two screens now, and I'm doing this video through StreamYard. So it will be saved. And this is my first time working with StreamYard, so be patient with me. I got my, I'm going to be putting up some slides and things like that. So as we move forward, and let me share this, start sharing this. So as we move forward, managing your back office operations so you can focus on your mission. And I have witnessed quite a few debunkles, I guess you should say, that has happened in the back end of the nonprofits. And that's why I've put all of these together. I posted last week, I have my topics that'll go all the way through the end of December, ending with tax statements, which is going to be very, very important at that time. So here we go. So today, I'm going to give you the top requested features. And there's a whole lot more, but I'm going to go through about 6, 7, or 8 features and just give you a little bit of background on why these are important. And these are the features that you really want to have when you're choosing your donor management software. So the first, let's see. Let me share this screen. Okay, email marketing. So the first, and this is real important, email marketing allows you to send personalized messages, drive conversion, drive website traffic, and build brand awareness. And if you notice, like if you sign up for on a nonprofit's website to start receiving email messages, you're going to start receiving messages about things that they're doing. You're going to start receiving messages about, maybe you've joined their newsletter, so you'll get newsletters. But it also is important in how you get this information. So when you're doing Facebook Lives, or you're doing promotions on Facebook or social media, and you're giving away your products or ebooks or anything like that, you want to be collecting email addresses from all of your constituents and donors. And let me just say, give you a little bit of background, the difference between constituent and donor. So a constituent is someone that you're prospecting. So they may not have given you a donation yet. They're on your list, they're in your system, but there hasn't been much cultivation with them. So they're a constituent until they become a donor. Once they become a donor, they've given it could be an in-kind gift, it could be a cash gift. So that's the difference between the two. So I will use those two terms interchangeably. But so in a donor database, this is most donor databases already have this piece in their system. It's one of the highly requested, and it's kind of part of the standard processes or standard features that it's going to come with the software. If it does not have this, then you need to renegotiate and talk to them. Maybe you can take something out, but most software will already have this email marketing piece in it. It's very, very important. It's how you communicate to your donors, because most of them are going to want to be talked to or communicated with through their email. So building this list, and later on, I'll go through list segmentation, like once you do this email marketing. So for instance, we use email marketing when we do appeals and campaigns. And so you may be running a campaign. Giving Tuesday is coming up. You should be getting ready for Giving Tuesday. And the email marketing for Giving Tuesday is going to be huge, because that's how you're going to reach the multitude of people that are going to be giving to your donation. Or even if you've collected 500 names over the year, your email marketing is going to be very important in terms of reaching those donors and those constituents throughout this time. And then you got the holidays coming up. It's going to really be important reaching out to them in that way also. So email marketing is one of the top requested features, and it's not just the requested feature, it should be a standard feature. Okay, so the next top requested feature is going to be, let me share this screen. Automation. So automation helps keep you in touch with hundreds of donors at the same time. And automation, it could be a standard feature, but it should be, if not, it should be a highly requested feature, because automation basically means that you are able to automate your email blasts. You can automate your reports so basically you can use automation internally and externally. Internally, you may want to automate the reports that you give to your team. You may want to automate reports that you're sending to finance, or you're automating reports just for yourself. Every week you want to see, how many donors did I get? How many new emails did I get? How many new donations did I get? What were the donations that I got? You want to be able to automate some of those things, because it could become redundant if every time you have to send out a report or send out an email, you got to recreate these automations, or you have to, you got to keep setting them up. So one of the things that's, that I find very helpful with automation is, like I do a lot of, my calendar is usually full every month for things that I have to do. And so I have automations that are linked into my software that will notify me that today is a day that the credit card should be run for the monthly donors. So that's an example of an automation, so that it comes up, it pops up every time that you want, that you have to do that for the month. Because like I said, when you're running your front office, these are the things that could get lost and not done. And you may miss an opportunity, or you may miss a report being sent. So you want to have a medium level of automation in your software. And another thing that it could be set up for automation is like when actions. And actions, that's, say you're talking to a prospective constituent, a prospective donor, and you are setting up meetings, or maybe you need to send them an email, or maybe you need to make a phone call. Your software should be capable of setting up all of those actions for you, so that if you're working with 5 or 6 people at the same time, your automation will come from that, your software letting you know, okay, tomorrow you got to make a phone call to Mr. ABCD, who is planning to send you a $10,000 check. So you want to have that automation so you don't miss making that phone call. Every phone call, every email, every contact that you have with your donor, think of it as very, very important, and you don't want to miss it. And you don't want to set things, you don't want to skip things that you've promised to these, your prospects, or things that you've promised to even to your donors. You don't want to skip those things, because they do, wait for your phone calls. They do wait for your emails. So automation is one of the things, like I said, it's not always a required or standard feature, but it's something that you may want to ask about when you're choosing your software. All right, the next one, I will share this also. So this is important. So direct mail tools and queries. Now, so I have 15 years experience working in Blackbaud's Razor's Edge. And so I basically, a lot of the things in there, I'm self-taught, and I have done training with them, and I've trained in their software. So a lot of things that I see, in the direct mail tools and the query options. First of all, those are two different things. I put them together because they work together. But in terms of, so the direct mail tools query allows you to filter your donors by category. Example is giving level, city, last gift, largest gift. If you're collecting data on age, you can, or demographic, different demographics, it allows you to do that. And so inside of the software that I have been working with for 15 years, the direct mail tool has a mail function that's already incorporated into the software. And I'm actually working with several, I have a website. Even in my website, it has a direct mail tool already embedded in that software or in that website that I can use. So when people subscribe to my website, or they purchase one of my memberships or something like that, I can automatically send a certain group, depending on how they're tagged. I can send them a particular email or a particular campaign or a notification, and I can even set up automations in my website. So this is one thing this is a must-have, because Without this, you're going to find yourself, we were talking about last week, a lot of people will use Excel spreadsheets very heavily, and they get to depend on those Excel spreadsheets, but those Excel spreadsheets, they won't do the same job as your donor management software, because your donor management software can pull almost all the fields that are in your constituent record. They can pull almost all those fields and you can manipulate them. In a Excel spreadsheet, you have to put all of those fields in there in order for it to work that way. So in terms of a query, queries are my favorite. And I mean, everything that I need to know, I just build a query on. And queries can go from simple to complex. You can go from having two separate queries where you need to merge and you need to remove certain donors or constituents from those queries. And you need to know how to do that also. Now, some of these donor management software may not be that complex and they may not have that option, but you at least want to be able to pull together a list of your donors or your constituents that you want to talk to. And then you are able to put in certain filters to actually segment them, you know, and I'm going to get to list segmentation also. But query is a grouping tool, and it just groups together your constituents or donors. And one thing you have to remember about queries is queries are not reports. And a lot of people get that confused, and they think once they run a query, they have a report on what they're, you know, on their donors. And that's not a report, that's a grouping tool. And the grouping tool is just saying, give me everyone who lives in Illinois that has given a gift over $500, that has their last gift was, you know, 2,500 and over or whatever. You can all those categories you can pull into a query to group it together. Once you have your group, then you determine, all right, is this going to be my email group? Is this going to be my direct mail group? And when we talk about direct mail, we're basically, you're talking about putting a letter or solicitation in an envelope and sending it out through the post office, not email lists. Direct mail means that you're taking that group of donors, you've already created a letter to send out to them, and you're merging that letter with that list of people, and these are the people that you want to talk to in that group, and this is the letter you want to use. So direct mail is basically sending out those mail pieces, and your query is going to help you build that list for those people. And one thing that you have to be aware of when you're doing direct mail is you want to have, if you're using a mail house, you want to have a good understanding of how they do that. I had a situation once, this was years ago, because now I'm not working directly. I used to be a donor coordinator, and now I manage that position, so I'm not working that closely with it. But years ago, I had a situation where there was a mail piece that was going out, 2,600 pieces. And so what you want to do is you want to have a system in place where you're on that list, or maybe 2 or 3 people in your department or that's working with you are on that list. You want them to get the mail, because you want to be able to see how long it's taking to get from that mail house to that person. We had a situation where some of the people so it's called a seat list. Your seat lists are those people that work with you directly, that you're going to mail it to them just so that you can gauge that they're being received in home. Well, the seat list received the mail. However, there were a ton of people that never received it because you can get a report from the mail house. They're supposed to be able to give you a report of how many were mailed, how many were in house, how many were actually delivered, and how many were returned. So they can give you that information. And our number was very high in terms of those that received it. And so when I did some investigating, what we found was there was a huge batch that was sitting at the post office that had never been mailed. They were just sitting at the post office, had never been mailed. So whenever you do a direct mail campaign and you're going to be mailing out letters, make sure that you're set up to get your data back, letting you know how many pieces were mailed, how many pieces failed, how many pieces, because you're going to want to, check that, because if they will charge you to mail it, but if half of them don't go out, and then especially nowadays with what's going on with COVID and the post office and things like that. Now, being a small nonprofit, you may not be doing direct mail at this point, but every letter that you send out, if you're going to be sending out thank you letters, if you're going to be sending out, invites, like you're having an event, if you're going to be sending out any of that, you want to be able to make sure that it's getting to the people that you're inviting. So that's one of the important features. The next feature that I'm going to go over is reporting. And reporting keeps track of how and when your donor engages with you, when and how do they give. And there are some reports that you're going to run over and over and over again. And one of the reports is you want to always have a gift detail report. And a gift detail report lets you know who's giving, what they're giving, the date that they're giving, the date that it hit the bank. And you're going to want to keep track of this, because this is what you're going to have to, you should be reconciling with finance. So on a daily, it depends on if you want to do it daily, monthly, weekly. I would suggest, going through it weekly and just checking, because it's possible that you had a check and it's not showing up in your data. So it's a checks and balance to make sure that everyone is being put in the system. And it also is the same report that could be used when you're trying to see how you're doing, like your amount to goal. Like, how are you doing in terms of if you've set a goal for the year, how close are you to that goal? So you want to pull those reports. So there's quite a few reports. I can give you a list of the different type of reports, but reporting is very important. And at the end of the month, you're going to be doing reconciliation. You're going to be doing campaigns. You need to report to your board how much you've raised in a certain amount of time. So reporting is highly recommended. And in a donor database, you want to ask them what type of reports do you have? And what I've noticed about a lot of software companies is what they will do is, so let's say you have 20 different reports and you need a very comprehensive report that you need to run. So you need it to have the donor's name, address, telephone number, email address, their last gift, their first gift, their you may need to know if it was a tribute gift or whatever. And what I noticed with a lot of software is what I just named could be 3 different reports. And what I mean by that is one report will cover this much information, another report will cover this information, and then another report will cover different information. Rarely will you find a report that will give you all 3 sections in one report. So what you want to do is when you're talking to them, when they have a report, tell them, I want a comprehensive report that's going to give me most of the data for my donor, and let them go through those reports with you. And, to see what type of reports that they have, because you will find yourself then, you're going to have to start manipulating data. You're going to have to start using Excel spreadsheets. You're going to have to start merging information to figure out, how to try and get all of that information together. So it's important that you ask about what type of reports. What are the names of the reports? Is this a gift? Is this a daily gift report? Can I get a monthly report? Can I get a report on all my tributes? Can I get a report on donors who have given at certain levels? You need to start thinking about all the different type of reporting that you need to do. So the next item I'm going to share with you is list segmentation. And this is the fun part when you're working with data, because what you could do is you can take a large amount of data, a small amount of data, and you can segment that list to so many different ways. And so I worked for a foundation at one point, huge foundation, $1 billion foundation. And I had mentioned before that we had over 41,000 donors. And I mentioned that last week. And so the list segmentation was madness. Every time we did a campaign and did a mailing, there were almost 50 segmentations. And when I say segmentations, we were looking at people that lived in certain areas, that gave over a certain amount of money, people that were in certain age groups that gave through a certain way, like if they give online. So we had an online segment, we had a mail-in segment, we had event segments, so after it was all said and done, there were about 49 different segments. Now, each of those segments, there was a different letter that went with each of those segments. So imagine how complex that is, trying to manage 4950 segments, 4950 letters, matching them up, making sure that the right donors are on the right list to get the right letter. So there are codes that for the letter to match the list. Now, I think a lot of organizations now are not doing it to that level and making it so much easier to do that, because, in some cases you can just do giving levels, you can do donors that like if if you have donors that live in Florida, you can pull your list of everyone that lives in Florida and you can send them there's a segment for them. And one of the things that we used to go back and forth on is when we would send a letter to Florida. So if it was the holidays, they don't get snow in Florida and things like that. Winter is sort of, I'm in Chicago, winter is like our summer. And so, so we would have to sit down and really think about how do they celebrate the holidays in Florida, because there's a lot of snowbirds there, people that have retired from other areas and they moved to Florida. And so even with Thanksgiving, with turkeys and things like that. So we had to really sit down and think about those segments and what they would look like with someone being on a beach in the middle of winter time when it's winter in most other places. So we'd have to create a separate segment in order to talk to them and set, different graphics to talk to them. So to say that, it's like you don't have to be that complex with your segmentation, but you do it where it really comes to being very important is that when you do talk to different donors that are at different levels, and I mentioned this last week too, you could very well undermine your campaign when you do that. So it's like if you have a $10,000 donor, a person that's capable of giving another $10,000, and you send them a solicitation asking them for $5 or increasing their donation by $5 or anything like that, that's not how you want to talk to that donor. You want to talk to that donor at the level they're at. So you have to segment those $10,000 donors from the $5,000 from the $100 donors and send different letters for build different separate lists and send different letters in terms of talking to them at that level. Because, even if you had a $10 donor and you wanted that donor to increase, you need to know what the amount of their last gift was, so you can basically ask intelligently, okay, your last gift, you can even put this in the email or the letter, thank you for your last gift of $100. Would you consider increasing your donation to $120? And most times you'll get a yes. So, but you got to talk to them in that way. You got to talk to them correctly where they're at, because you come back and say, you screw it up and say, okay, thank you for your last gift of $100. Would you consider giving us $5,000? That donor's going to be like, no way. Nope, I'm not doing it. I'm done. That's it. So list segmentation allows you to write communication with a targeted audience in mind. So keep that in mind. This is one of the important things that you want to ask, when you're looking at donor software. And integration. Let me share this. This is really important. I think this is the last one. So integration. Let me see. Let me put that one in again. Okay, here we go. Integration with other software. Be very careful when a software company tell you they integrate with multiple applications. Without integration, it could be time consuming to import and export data. I save this one for last because this word is used very loosely with a lot of software companies. And integration basically means that the two items or the two software work inside. One works inside of the other, and so it's linked, and it works inside of the software that you have. A lot of companies will tell you, yes, we're integrated with your software. We integrate with this, make sure you ask them can you give me a list of all the companies that you actually integrate with? Because I have had companies that I've done software comparisons, and with 2 or 3 companies, and they tell me they integrate. So my next question is, can you explain to me how you do that? Because some companies will say they integrate, and it will be what will happen is they will tell you, well, you have from our software, you have to export the data from our software, and then your software that you already have should be able to import our data coming out of our software into your data. That is not integration. That's importing. So make sure that you're clear on knowing the difference between integration and importing data. Integration means it could be an app, it could be a software that links directly into whatever you already have. And the other thing is, you also want to know, if you don't currently have a software, you want to know how easy is it. I have an Excel spreadsheet, for an example. I have an Excel spreadsheet. It has 2,000 names on it with all their data. How easy is it for me to import this information into the software that you're showing me that you would like for me to purchase? And at that point, if they can't give you a straight out answer, then you need to ask them, okay, will you provide the support I need to import this data to get me started into your software? You do not want to be manually entering 2,000 names into a database. It should have the ability to import an Excel spreadsheet or CSV file into the software that you're using, especially if you have a lot of data. If you've got like 10 or 15 names or whatever, yeah, you can probably do that, each individually and manually. So that is the last slide that I have in terms of the top features of choosing your database management software. And like I said, I know for some people, this might not be something that you think that you need right now, or something that you may not even be interested in. But believe me, if you're planning to grow your nonprofit, whether you're just starting out, some people, when I look at the IRS terms and in terms of what a small nonprofit is, it kind of ranges somewhere between 2 and 3 million. And then it depends on how many people you have on your staff. So if you consider yourself a small nonprofit, consider using a donor management software, because that's going to help you. And then you also want to know, with that donor management software, how big can it grow? Like how many donors can I put in here before you're charging me more money? How many donors, or before I have to, purchase a new software? That's a key. The other key, and this is the one last thing I wanted to say, you also want to know, am I going to be hosted, or do I own the software? Hosted means that the company who's selling you the software, they're going to host your data, which means your data will sit on their server. Now, if you decide that you no longer want that software, before you tell them that you no longer want it, you need to ask them, if I wanted to get a copy of my data, what do I need to do? And let them explain that to you. Don't tell them that you're thinking of canceling. Just ask them, I may need a copy of my data, and what do I need to do? If they cannot provide you with a copy of your data, that's a problem. The other thing is, if you own the software, you own the data, that's a more secure option, but you may lose a lot of features with owning your data, because the software that I use, they've moved everyone to the cloud. It's so much easier. The backup is easier to do if you had to back up your data, because it's sitting in the cloud. It's easier to manipulate the data. It's easier to secure the data and be compliant. But you really want to know before you switch software. Do not tell them, because they're in the business of selling. And once you tell them that you're trying to leave them, they may, all of a sudden, you may not have access to your data. If, they get antsy when you start telling them, well, I'm thinking about going to another software. So I normally don't tell them that until I know for sure that I want to move. But there's questions I'll ask them ahead of time in terms of making sure I can get my data. And if it's not sounding right to me, then I start, making provisions to protect my data. But you really want to know from them what what is in their contract that says, if we, part, what happens with my data? Do I own the data or do you own the data? So that is it for today. I thank you guys for, tuning in, watching my video. These videos will be saved. Next week, I am going to go over questions to ask when inquiring about a donor management software. So that's pretty much the next step, coming up with your questions. And what are the top questions that will get you the best answers, so that you can make the best decision in choosing your data software. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. And have a great week. And I will see you next week.